You know the story. Two people come together, full of love, passion, and hope for the future. Everything feels perfect. But then slowly, so slowly it's almost imperceptible, something changes. The connection starts to fray, conversations become shorter, and the laughter feels less frequent. One day you wake up realizing the relationship feels heavier, harder, and far from what it once was. The worst part? You can't even pinpoint exactly when or why it started unraveling. That's the terrifying power of the silent killer of relationships, emotional neglect. Unlike dramatic fights or betrayals, emotional neglect creeps in quietly. It thrives on unspoken words, unmet needs, and unresolved feelings. It shows up in the busy days when you forget to check in with your partner, in the nights spent scrolling through your phone instead of talking, and in the unspoken resentments that build like invisible walls between you. The truth is, most relationships don't end because of a single catastrophic event. They end because of a slow, steady erosion of connection. The silent killer doesn't arrive with fireworks or warning signs. It comes disguised as routine, complacency, and the mistaken belief that love is enough without effort. Let's dive into the quiet truths about this silent killer and, more importantly, how to stop it in its tracks. 1. Recognize the small disconnects before they become big problems. The silent killer of relationships doesn't announce itself with a bang. It sneaks in during the quiet moments when life gets busy and the little things start to slip. A missed, "How was your day?" here. An ignored moment of vulnerability there, and before you know it, the bond you once cherished begins to feel less solid. The tricky part is that these small disconnects are easy to overlook. You tell yourself it's not a big deal if you don't ask about their day because you'll do it tomorrow, or you think it's okay to brush off their frustration because they'll get over it. But relationships aren't built or destroyed in one day. They're the sum of these small daily moments. And when those moments of connection are neglected, even unintentionally, emotional distance begins to grow. Recognizing these small cracks is the first step to stopping emotional neglect. Pay attention to the way you and your partner communicate. Are you really listening, or just waiting for your turn to speak? Do you check in with each other emotionally, or has "how are you" become just a routine question? Repairing the small disconnects is often as simple as being present. Put down your phone during conversations, make time for shared activities, and show your partner they matter through consistent, intentional effort. When you notice the small gaps and address them early, you prevent them from becoming insurmountable chasms. Because in relationships, it's the little things that mean everything. 2. Don't mistake physical presence for emotional availability. Being physically present in a relationship doesn't mean you're emotionally available. You can share the same space, sit side by side, and even go through daily routines together, yet still feel miles apart emotionally. The silent killer of relationships thrives in this disconnect, when you're there, but not really there. Emotional availability means engaging, truly being present in the moment with your partner. It's not just about hearing their words, it's about understanding the feelings behind them. It's about responding with empathy instead of autopilot reactions. Think about it. How many times have you nodded along to your partner's story while your mind wandered to a work email or tomorrow's to-do list? Those moments, though unintentional, send a clear message. I'm here, but I'm not fully with you. The cost of this disconnect builds over time. Your partner may stop sharing their thoughts because they feel unheard. Vulnerabilities go unspoken, and slowly the emotional foundation weakens. Physical presence is important, but emotional availability is what truly nurtures a relationship. Without it, love begins to feel hollow. With it, even the most ordinary moments can feel deeply meaningful. Choose to show up, fully, every day. 3. Stop letting unspoken expectations create distance. One of the quickest ways for emotional neglect to creep into a relationship is through unspoken expectations. We all have them, assumptions about how we think our partner should act, respond, or show love. But when those expectations go unvoiced, they become invisible barriers that slowly erode connection. Think about it. Have you ever found yourself upset because your partner didn't do something you never actually asked them to do? Maybe you wanted them to notice you were upset and offer comfort, or you hoped they'd plan a special date without being prompted. By voicing your needs, you give your partner the chance to meet them instead of unknowingly disappointing you. Relationships thrive when both people feel seen and understood. Don't let silence be the reason your bond weakens. Speak your truth. Your relationship depends on it. 4. The importance of prioritizing each other. In the rush of daily life, it's easy to let your partner slip down the list of priorities. Work deadlines, family responsibilities, social commitments, they all demand attention. And before you know it, the person who means the most to you is getting what's left of your time and energy instead of the best of it. This is how emotional neglect quietly sets in. Not through intentional disregard, but through unintentional deprioritization. Relationships need to be nurtured, and that means making a conscious effort to prioritize each other, no matter how busy life gets. It's not about grand gestures or constant availability. It's about showing your partner that they matter, even in the small, ordinary moments. A quick text to check in during a hectic day, a sincere thank you for something they did, or setting aside uninterrupted time together can make all the difference. When you don't prioritize your partner, they can start to feel invisible, like they're competing with everything else in your life for your attention. Over time, this creates distance and insecurity, even if the love is still there. The antidote is simple but powerful. Be intentional. Make time for connection, no matter how small. Turn off distractions, look them in the eye, and remind them that they're a priority in your life. Love doesn't just happen. It's built through consistent effort. When you prioritize your partner, you're not just maintaining the relationship, you're strengthening it for whatever challenges come your way. Address resentment before it becomes unmanageable. Resentment is one of the most corrosive forces in any relationship, and yet it often starts so subtly that you don't notice it at first. It might begin as a minor annoyance, an unmet expectation, an unresolved argument, or feeling underappreciated for something you consistently do. But if left unchecked, those small moments can fester, growing into a simmering resentment that creates emotional walls between you and your partner. The danger with resentment is how quietly it builds. Instead of addressing the issue when it arises, you might push it down, thinking it's not worth bringing up or that it'll fix itself. But unspoken frustrations rarely fade. They linger. Over time, they can lead to bitterness, withdrawal, or even a loss of respect for your partner. The key to stopping resentment in its tracks is to face it early and with honesty. When something bothers you, don't let it linger. Approach the conversation calmly and use I statements to express your feelings without placing blame. For example, say, "I feel overwhelmed when I'm always handling the chores on my own. Can we talk about a way to share them more evenly?" By addressing these issues as they arise, you stop resentment from becoming a silent barrier. Healthy relationships aren't perfect, they're honest. Deal with the small cracks before they turn into unfixable divides. 7. Don't let complacency replace curiosity. One of the quietest threats to a relationship is complacency, the belief that because you've been together for a while, you already know everything there is to know about your partner. It sounds harmless at first, even comforting, But over time, this mindset creates distance. When you stop being curious about your partner, who they are, what they're feeling, and how they're growing, you risk losing the spark of connection that brought you together in the first place. People are constantly evolving, even in long-term relationships. Your partner isn't the same person they were a year ago, and neither are you. Their dreams, struggles, and joys shift with time, and if you don't stay curious about those changes, you might wake up one day feeling like strangers. Curiosity means asking thoughtful questions, even about the little things. What's been inspiring you lately? What's something you've been thinking about a lot? It's about noticing their mood and gently exploring what's behind it. It's also about sharing your own inner world, inviting them into the parts of you they might not have seen before. Complacency says, "I already know them." Curiosity says, "I want to keep knowing them." The difference is profound. Relationships thrive when both partners feel seen, heard, and understood. Never assume the work of getting to know each other is finished. It's a lifelong process. When you stay curious, you keep the connection alive, dynamic, and deeply fulfilling. Curiosity isn't just love's spark, it's its fuel. 8. The relationship you have with yourself shapes every other connection. Here's a truth many people overlook. The way you treat yourself directly impacts how you show up in your relationship. If you're constantly neglecting your own needs, ignoring your emotions, or being overly critical of yourself, that internal dynamic doesn't stay contained. It spills into your connection with your partner. Emotional neglect of yourself often mirrors as emotional neglect in your relationship. When you don't take care of your own well-being, you may find yourself relying too heavily on your partner to fill the gaps. This creates imbalance and pressure, making it harder for the relationship to thrive. Conversely, when you're secure and in tune with your own needs, you bring a healthier, more stable version of yourself into the relationship. Building a strong relationship with yourself means practicing self-awareness and self-compassion. It's about understanding your triggers, expressing your emotions, and giving yourself permission to rest, heal, and grow. When you prioritize self-care, you're better equipped to communicate, support, and connect with your partner. Remember, no relationship can thrive when one or both people are running on empty. Loving yourself isn't selfish. It's the foundation for loving someone else fully. When you learn to meet your own needs, you approach your partner from a place of wholeness, not dependency. At its core, the health of your relationship depends on two people who are committed to their own growth as much as they're committed to each other. Start with yourself. It's the greatest gift you can give your relationship. 6. Emotional intimacy needs constant attention. Physical intimacy often gets a lot of focus in relationships, but emotional intimacy is the foundation that keeps a partnership strong and fulfilling. Without it, even the most physically connected couples can feel distant, as though they're living parallel lives instead of sharing a deeply intertwined one. The silent killer of emotional intimacy is neglect, allowing life's busyness to push away the conversations and moments that foster closeness. Emotional intimacy isn't built through grand gestures. It grows in the small, consistent ways you show up for each other. It's in asking your partner, "How are you really doing?" and giving them the time and space to answer. It's about sharing your own fears, dreams, and vulnerabilities instead of keeping them bottled up. These moments of openness create a sense of safety and trust that's irreplaceable. When emotional intimacy is neglected, the relationship starts to feel hollow, even if love is still there. But when you nurture it consistently, it becomes the anchor that holds you together through all of life's storms. Connection isn't automatic. It's a choice you make every day. And there it is, the silent killer of relationships, unpacked and laid bare. But before you click away, let me leave you with something unexpected. This isn't just about fixing your relationship. It's about how you live in all your relationships, romantic, platonic, and, most importantly, the one you have with yourself. Take a moment. Think about the quiet moments in your life where connection faded, not with a loud crash, but with the slow, creeping quiet of things left unsaid and actions left undone. Have you ever found yourself wondering why love didn't feel like enough, or why someone you cared about felt so distant? That's the real challenge, isn't it? The moments that slip by unnoticed until they're too big to ignore. But here's the good news. It's not too late to rewrite your story. Relationships aren't destroyed in a day, and they aren't saved in one either. The beauty lies in the small, consistent choices you make. Every word you speak, every action you take, every ounce of effort you give. Now let's make this personal. What's one moment where you noticed connection slipping away? Maybe it was with a partner, a friend, or even yourself. Drop it in the comments. Let's talk about the silent killers we've faced and how we've learned to fight them. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. And if this spoke to you, if even one sentence made you pause, reflect, or nod along, hit that like button. Let me know we're on the same page. Better yet, subscribe, because this isn't the end of the conversation. It's just the start of understanding how we show up for the people who matter most. One last thing. When was the last time you really looked at your relationships, not just with others, but with yourself? It's not an easy question, but it's an important one. Answer it honestly, then take the first step toward making those connections stronger, deeper, and more intentional. So, share your thoughts below, hit like if this resonated, and let's keep this conversation going, because the silent killers don't stand a chance when we choose to show up every single day.